We've been waiting!
It started with a dare, the kind that sounds harmless when spoken aloud but feels heavier when you realize you actually agreed to it. Michael had always been the type to laugh in the face of ghost stories, the guy who called every paranormal tale fake, every strange sound just the wind. So when his friends challenged him to spend one night in the old Harrington house, the one everyone in town whispered about, he didn't hesitate. He laughed, slapped the table and said, "Fine, I'll even take pictures for you." The Harrington house had been empty for 30 years. People said no one had lived there since the winter of 1993, when the entire Harrington family disappeared without a trace. The story was that they left dinner on the table, lights still on, front door wide open, and then simply vanished. No bodies were ever found. Some said they moved away overnight. Others claimed something darker happened inside those walls. But the one thing everyone agreed on was that the house had been left untouched all this time. No one had dared to move in, not because of the smell of mold or rotting wood, but because anyone who stepped inside said they heard it. Voices. Faint at first, like a radio playing in another room, then closer, whispering, laughing, calling names. People left shaken, pale, and swore they would never go back. But Michael didn't believe any of it. He drove up the long, cracked driveway alone, headlights bouncing off broken windows and peeling paint. The house loomed in the darkness, bigger than he remembered from passing by as a kid. Its roof sagged, shutters hung loose like broken arms, and the porch tilted forward as if the whole place wanted to swallow him. He parked his car, grabbed his backpack, and said out loud, "Just an old house," as if speaking it made it true. The air was colder here, heavy with damp earth and something else he couldn't name. He walked up the steps, each one groaning under his weight. When he reached the front door, it was still open. Not wide, just a few inches, like it had been waiting for him. He pushed it with his foot and it creaked in protest, revealing a hallway swallowed in shadows. The smell hit him first, stale air mixed with rot, like something had been left to die long ago. He pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through dust, illuminating peeling wallpaper, framed family photos still hanging crooked on the walls, their glass cracked but faces inside untouched. The Harringtons stared back at him from another life, frozen in smiles that felt wrong now. He stepped inside and the floor moaned beneath him. The door behind him shifted and closed on its own, the sound sharp and final. He turned quickly, heart kicking, but it was just the wind, he told himself. Just the wind. He took a deep breath and called out, "Hello." His voice bounced down the hallway and came back smaller. He walked forward, passing the living room on the left. Furniture was still there under white sheets stained yellow with time. A chandelier hung above like a dead thing, its crystals dull with grime. The smell was stronger here and the cold was biting, like the house held winter in its bones. He pulled out his camera and took a picture. The flash lit up the room for a second, and in that blink he thought he saw something. A shape in the corner where the sheet had slipped off a chair, like someone sitting there. But when the light died, the corner was empty. He laughed under his breath. Get a grip. He moved deeper into the house, the floorboards complaining louder with every step. The dining room was next, and that was when he stopped. The table was still set. Plates, glasses, silverware, all coated in decades of dust. A bottle of wine lay on its side, its contents long gone. He raised his phone to take another picture when he heard it. Faint like a breath at the edge of hearing. A voice. "Michael," he froze, phone shaking in his hand. It was so soft he almost thought he imagined it. He turned slowly, the beam of light slicing through the dark. No one there. He swallowed hard and forced a laugh. "Nice try, guys," he said louder, convincing himself his friends had somehow followed him. "You didn't scare me." He waited. Silence. He kept walking, telling himself it was the wind moving through the broken windows, just sound playing tricks. He reached the kitchen. Rusted appliances leaned against the walls, and the sink was filled with black water that hadn't dried in 30 years. A foul stench crawled up from the drain, thick enough to taste. He was about to turn away when he heard it again, closer this time. "Michael, come upstairs." His mouth went dry. It was a woman's voice, soft and sweet like honey poured over glass. He gripped his phone so hard his knuckles whitened. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice cracking. Silence again. Then faintly the sound of footsteps above him. Slow, measured. One step, pause, another. He stared at the ceiling, his heart pounding like a drum. There shouldn't be anyone here. The staircase was to his right, rising into darkness. He told himself to leave. Just turn around, walk out, get in the car and drive. But something pulled him. Curiosity, maybe, or something deeper. He moved to the stairs. Each step screamed as he climbed, and the higher he went, the colder it became until his breath came out in clouds. Halfway up, he stopped. There was a figure at the top, just standing there at the end of the hallway. A woman. She wore a white dress stained with something dark at the hem. Her hair was black and wet, clinging to her face. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Michael's voice died in his throat. He blinked and she was gone. The hallway was empty. He stood frozen, unable to breathe, every nerve screaming to run. But he kept going, step by slow step, until he reached the landing. Doors lined the hallway, most closed, one cracked open at the far end. That was where the air was coldest, spilling out like smoke. And then the voices began. Not one now, many. Whispering, overlapping, too fast to understand but filled with something sharp, something hungry. His chest tightened as he walked toward that door, his flashlight flickering like it was dying. He pushed the door open and the smell hit him first, worse than before, like rot and copper and earth. The room was small, and at first it looked empty except for a single chair in the center. Then he saw the walls, every inch covered in writing carved deep into the plaster. Words over words, spirals of sentences. He leaned closer, trying to read them, and felt his stomach turn. They were all the same, over and over again. Stay with US. His breath came fast and shallow. He backed away, heart racing, and that was when the whispers stopped. Silence so heavy it hurt. Then, close to his ear, as warm breath brushed his neck, a voice said, "You shouldn't have come here." He spun around, but the room was empty. The door slammed shut, plunging him into darkness as his flashlight died. He fumbled for his phone, panic clawing at his throat, but the screen stayed black no matter how many times he tapped it. Then he heard it again. Footsteps. Not one pair, many. Surrounding him, circling in the dark. The whispers came back, louder now, rising into laughter, sharp and cold. Hands brushed his arms, his face, and he screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the dark. The last thing he saw when the flash of lightning cut through the window for a single heartbeat was the room full of people. Dozens of them, standing still, faces pale and hollow, eyes black pits. And in the center, the woman in white, smiling wide, her teeth long and jagged. Then the dark rushed in and the house fell silent once more. Michael could not breathe. The air was so thick it felt like he was drowning in shadows. He stumbled backward, hands groping for the door, but his fingers met nothing but icy walls. The whispers were inside his head now, threading through his thoughts like worms, hissing his name, saying words that were not words, sounds that scraped against the inside of his skull. He pressed himself against the wall and squeezed his eyes shut, whispering to himself, "It's not real, it's not real." But then the hands came again. Soft at first, fingertips trailing across his arms like silk, then firmer, gripping, pulling. He thrashed, his body jerking in blind panic, and his palms slammed against something cold and smooth. A face, wet skin stretched over bone, lips that moved too close to his ear, shaping words he couldn't bear to hear. "Stay." His scream tore through the room but never made it out. The laughter that followed was deafening, and in that chaos the lights came back, not from his phone, but from somewhere deep within the house. A sickly yellow glow bleeding through the cracks in the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. He opened his eyes and froze. The room was gone. Or rather, it was not the room anymore. The walls had melted away into a long hallway that shouldn't exist, lined with doors on both sides, each one slightly open, darkness yawning inside. The chair was still there, But now it sat in the middle of this impossible corridor, and the woman in white stood beside it, her head tilted too far to one side, her hair dripping black water onto the floor that never pooled, only vanished into the boards like the house was drinking it. Her smile cut across her face, wide and wrong, and when she spoke, her voice was everywhere inside the walls under his skin. "You came because you heard us. Now you belong." Michael stumbled back, shaking his head. "No, no, I'm leaving." His voice sounded small, broken. He turned and ran, his shoes slamming against the wood, but no matter how far he ran, the hallway stretched on, the doors blurring past like they were watching him. The whispers chased him, laughing, calling his name, promising things in voices that sounded like people he loved, voices that should not be here. He saw his mother's voice in the dark, calling, "Michael, help me." He heard his father, his best friend, voices of the dead and the living all tangled together until he wanted to tear his ears off. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs gave out and he fell hard to his knees. When he looked up, he was back in the same room. The chair, the walls, the words carved deep and bleeding now, fresh and wet like the house was alive and still cutting itself open. The woman stood closer, and this time she wasn't alone. Figures filled the room, packed so tightly their bodies bent and broke to fit. Faces stretched long and wrong, jaws hanging open in soundless screams, eyes black and shining like oil. Some had no faces at all, just skin pulled smooth, twitching as if something underneath wanted out. Michael scrambled back until his spine hit the wall. "What do you want?" he cried. The woman's smile grew wider, splitting her cheeks, her teeth too many and too sharp. When she spoke, the sound came from every mouth in the room, 1,000 voices speaking as one. "We want you to listen." And then the lights went out again. The dark was a weight, crushing him, squeezing the breath from his lungs. He clawed at the floor, trying to find the door, the wall, anything, but the room was gone. He was falling now, tumbling through nothing, the whispers swirling around him like smoke. And then he hit the ground, hard. Pain shot up his arms as he tried to catch himself. He pushed up on shaking elbows and realized he was outside, on the porch. The front door stood wide open behind him, yawning black. Rain was pouring now, drenching him in seconds, lightning splitting the sky in jagged veins. His car was there, headlights flashing like eyes in the dark. He didn't think, didn't breathe, just ran. He barreled down the steps, splashing through puddles, sprinting for the car like his life depended on it, because it did. He yanked the door open, threw himself inside and slammed it shut. His hands fumbled for the keys, slick with rain, heart pounding so hard he could taste blood. He jammed the key into the ignition and turned. The engine roared to life, and relief hit him so hard he almost sobbed. He slammed the gear into reverse, tires spitting mud, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror. He laughed then, a broken, choking sound, tears mixing with rain on his face. He was out. He made it. And then the voice came from the back seat. "Where are you going, Michael?" His head snapped around, and in the flash of lightning he saw her. The woman in white, sitting behind him, her smile wide enough to split her skull, her eyes black holes that swallowed the light. He didn't even have time to scream before her hands shot forward, fingers stretching like claws, wrapping around his head. The last thing he saw was his own reflection in her eyes, and then there was nothing but the sound of rain and the empty road. When they found his car 2 days later, it was empty. The doors were open, engine dead, headlights still faintly glowing, though the battery should have been long drained. There were no footprints in the mud, no signs of a struggle. Just a phone lying on the driver's seat, screen cracked, its last photo showing a blurry figure in white standing at the top of a staircase, smiling. And if you listen close enough when you drive past the Harrington house on a rainy night, some say you can still hear him, calling for help, screaming, laughing.